her grandfather, who is currently a missing person, was the person that went to my grandfather and told him, get your family out of the village because there's gonna be the Turkish invasion. Her grandfather saved my mother, and we met in Limassol.
We had kids, and it was really difficult to grow up in another culture and another religion. My personality inside the house was different to what it was outside the house. We were raising them with our own values and our own beliefs.
Did you find peace in Cyprus?
I didn't find peace in Cyprus. Made a leap of faith. We did not have anything planned.
How does feminine toxicity comes to our relationship?
There's such a big movement around female empowerment. But the problem with this, the women who are representing it, they don't know what authenticity is.
Go to therapy before you have children.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Made in Cyprus, big business story from a tiny island, or as many of you like to call it, Mitsiala Rotsi. Special episode, but every episode is special. But before we go into that, some boring housekeeping. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't liked, like. If you haven't commented, please comment. And if you haven't told your yaya about us or your friends, please proceed and tell us. You supporting us means that we can keep going. We can keep sharing the story of Cyprus. We can keep sharing the stories of the wonderful people putting Cyprus on the global map. And that is the purpose of this podcast, right? Share the stories and help rebrand Cyprus beyond the usual cliches. Now, why is a special episode? Because I think a couple of weeks ago we had the two twin brothers from Gen Capital. Today we have another family environment, slightly different. Partners in love, partners in crime. So we're gonna go and discuss and understand a bit the dynamics of that, but also we're gonna go really deep because today we have expert in neuropsychology, we have expert in mental health, we have expert in systemic therapist and authenticity coach. And these are topics that, you know, I'm deeply attached to it, but these are topics that we do not talk enough about it. Now, without further ado, please help me welcome Stephanos Ioannou. Welcome to the show. And lovely Helene Alexi Ioannides.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hi,
or
Martin.
the power couple, sexiest, hottest, smartest people on these specific topics, guys. Thank you very much for coming. I've been following your journey for quite some time, and I love your dynamic. And it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for both of us to be here. And we both are big fans of your brand as well.
Thank you.
And I think that you're doing an excellent job in bringing forward new ideas in the marketplace of Cyprus when it comes to marketing and advertising.
Thank you, buddy. But, what is your personal definition of relationship? Or what it become?
Okay, so this was a question in which if you asked me as a younger man to answer it, I would find it extremely difficult. So for me, a relationship or being in a partnership with someone means that I don't have to translate my soul. I want the person with whom I'm with to potentially understand truths about me that I don't see in front of me. And this comes from a male perspective, I suppose.
Yeah. Helene?
Yeah, for me, a relationship it's a sacred union where truth, growth, and devotion can be explored and reflected to one another, where you get to see parts of your own self reflected back at you from your partner, the dark parts, light parts, the shadow self that we talk about, and all the beauty as well. It's a space where you get to explore love, but not necessarily love in the cliche sense that we're used to, but love in the essence of presence.
And you guys have been traveling together for how long now? How long have you guys been together?
15 years.
15 years.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 15.
What is your anniversary date?
It's on the 21st of June.
Helene?
It's 21st of June, yes.
Now, calm down. He bought it right. Now we can continue.
He has passed the test.
Passed the test. You guys moved together in back to Cyprus together, yeah?
Yeah.
Where were you before? What was? Tell me a bit more about the background before these 15 years.
How we met,
Yeah.
the ancestral occurrences that made us meet.
The life choices that brought you to that situation.
Okay, so I do not know if we've shared this before or on a live or a podcast.
No, it depends which part you're going to share.
Okay, so the interesting thing about the way we've met and we ended up together, okay, it was a troubled, let's say, meet up. It wasn't easy. But behind that story, there's a more interesting story. The story of our ancestors, who my grandfather and her grandfather used to be best friends and go hunting together.
You guys also have very similar surname, actually.
Yes, we do, but we're not related.
We've checked.
You checked that, right?
Yes.
So there's no inbreeding going on here.
No inbreeding going on.
Good job.
And they were both from the same village. And her grandfather, who is currently a missing person, was the person that went to my grandfather and told him, get your family out of the village because there's going to be the Turkish invasion.
Yeah.
And actually her grandfather saved my mother and my family tree. And in a way, we met in Limassol.
Wow.
So not only they were best friends, but also there is kind of a tribute to her grandfather from my mother's side, in which he was a police officer, and he was responsible for the region there, and my grandfather was the, how do you say it in English?
Kinodarchi.
Muhtaris.
Muhtaris.
Yeah.
Muhtaris. The
Community.
The mayor,
mayor.
kind of the village. So, strangely enough, we met in Limassol.
We didn't meet in Limassol. We met in Ayanapa.
Yeah, okay, we met in
Ayanapa,
Ayanapa, but we both live
In the Napa days.
Yes, in the Napa days.
In the Napa days.
Do you guys believe in destiny?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you think this was written?
Yes, because to back that story up, my family, my mother and my father, decided to rent a house in Birgo during my upbringing. I moved house like 30 times. I was going to say 50, but let's keep it authentic, 30. And the land that was touching the property that we moved into was his dad's land.
So second coincidence.
So the second time, my father and his father met. So then when I met Stefano and I went to meet his family, and his mother asked me, who's your family? And I said, my grandfather was a missing person. So then we connected the stories there, and then we connected the story in Birgo as well. So it was like, oh wow, look at these coincidences that are occurring. So yes, we do believe in
It was destined.
destiny.
Amazing. And then you moved out of Cyprus, or like you guys spent some time out of the island, right?
Yes, like 10 years, I would say, of our life.
Yeah. So we
But you were already together.
we met while we were both studying abroad. Stefano
Yeah.
was studying in Leicester, and
Yeah.
I was in Reading University. And then from there, after London, we moved to Italy. Then from Italy, we moved to Saudi Arabia. And then from Saudi Arabia, we moved back to Cyprus. So we've been away for 12 years, and we've been in Cyprus in the last 3 years only.
And there was
Wow.
a UK in between.
And what made you come back to Cyprus then?
What made us come back to Cyprus? So, when we were in Saudi Arabia, obviously we went there, good package, lucrative amount of money. But I was suffering from anxiety, I would say, and depression because the working conditions were not the best. On the other hand, I think Helene found her niche.
Women's
And
empowerment.
Yes, women empowerment, and
And
she was
wellness.
quite happy there.
Much need for that in there, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yeah, a lot. I think it was, when you say right in the right place at the right time, and that's really where I figured out, okay, this is what I really feel passionate about, because I spent the remaining years before that, like the 10 years that we were moving countries as expats, changing careers. While Stefano was building his career, I was changing my careers along the line. Wherever he would go, I would go, right? And therefore, I never really found what I really wanted to do until I went to Saudi Arabia. I was like, okay, this is what I feel like, yeah, I really want to continue and pursue.
Is it because you saw the situation and the fact that there isn't much talk or action?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of suppression that I personally felt and I saw, and therefore it sparked a curiosity in me to want to empower and help more women that didn't have, whether it was the confidence or the voice or the ability to have that same freedom that I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that definitely sparked curiosity.
It's interesting in a way. Like, I mean, you were not doing that well internally. You found finally your path. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like opposite trajectories.
Yeah.
So how did Cyprus sit in the middle then?
We had kids at that point, and it was really difficult to watch Celeste and Nerea grow up in another culture and another religion that was so different to our own. So the foundations that we were teaching them within the house were different to what was being taught outside of the house.
Oh, wow.
And so therefore that would have created a great confusion for them.
They were asking questions and not understanding why.
Well, they were not yet, but they were going to, because they were only 2 and 3 at that point. So it was important for me, especially as a woman, to not be preaching about women's empowerment and yet feel like I didn't feel like I had to cover myself when I used to leave the house. So my personality inside the house was different to what it was outside the house. And for me, it was really important that our kids had the right foundation, and for Stefan, of course, as well. And yeah, that we were raising them with our own values and our own beliefs that but that's half the village, isn't it? There is always that way of saying that to raise a child you need the whole village, right? So there is only as much as you can do in your 4 walls. And Stephanos, what, like, did you find peace in Cyprus? Was it a location problem or cultural problem?
I didn't find peace in Cyprus initially. I'm finding peace, and I'm still in the path of finding peace in Cyprus. So as soon as we relocated, it was this question mark. So we've made a leap of faith from Saudi Arabia to Cyprus. We did not have anything planned. The only thing that we had planned was the fact that I was going to start my own psychology practice. So that's how I founded the Limassol Psychological Well-being Center. But as, let's say, whenever you take a leap of faith in business, and if it's the right path, other things slowly start aligning in that direction. So I had this podcast, and due to some TikTok videos that went viral, I gained fame and exposure very quickly. And I was not ready for that. Not because I lack the skills, but I do not have the experience that I have today as a therapist after 4 years of establishing Limassol Psychological Well-being Center. Of course, always my clients' results were great, but there was always this question mark in understanding the market of Cyprus when it comes to mental health. Because there is this fluctuation in when people are seeking mental health support.
Wow, there are patterns.
There are patterns
throughout the year. Months.
The year. And there are certain, let's say, marketing strategies that work. So, for example, an insight that might be interesting to you or many other mental health professionals that might be out there, during Christmas, it seems to be at a peak level when you speak about relationships, because people spend a lot of time together.
Like it or not.
Like it or not, right?
Like COVID.
Whether it's COVID, Christmas, Easter,
Fascinating.
summer. Now, when spring kicks in, a lot of people are suffering with anxiety and panic attacks because their circadian rhythm hasn't yet adapted to the change in the sun, waking up cycle and sleeping cycle, and also allergies.
Wow.
So there is this trend. Now, during winter months, we have depression, more or less, sadness. And these are the periods in which people are looking for specific things. Now, family trauma is usually trending no matter the period. So that's steady. But anything else is like, it's seasonal.
So, how much of the issues you guys are trying to help with, or that you're trying to support people, is in common, and what is different? So between psychology, and you have a mix of both gender as clients.
Yes.
You obviously you focus mostly on female. What is the relationship? What are the similarities, and what are the things that are completely different
Between genders.
Yeah, in terms of the work that you do, and in terms of
Okay.
the work that Helene does.
Would you like to take the question?
Okay. So I would say that I focus exclusively on women.
Yeah.
And really helping them to get clarity and vision as to the direction that they're taking, whether that's business or professionally. And I combine that together with systemic family constellation therapy, which has to do with generational trauma and how that's passed down through your bloodline and any trauma that you may be carrying. And I combine that together with holistic practices. So I would say that my approach is more holistic and incorporates wellness and women's empowerment and the therapy scope. And Stephanos is more of a traditional mental health practitioner that bridges neuroscience as well.
Yes. So I apply, I would call myself an interdisciplinary psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I see men coming to my office, they might be suffering with anxiety, they might be suffering with depression. They need another man to express their pain that kind of will understand them as a man,
Yeah.
but on the other hand also as a professional. 99.9% of men that are going to visit my office, they're going to have father wounds. There are very few that have an excellent relationship with their father. And even if they have the greatest father of all times, they will have something that they're not quite happy with. Now, the opposite with women. Women are usually going to have issues with their mothers. When I see couples, because there are these essential differences between males and females, I find men usually staying in the I think sphere compared to women that are staying in the I feel sphere. And that's the miscommunication of genders. Now, when a couple comes to my office, I literally go through the process of translating to each other what their husband is trying to say and what the wife is trying to say. So we're talking about the translation and also looking behind the complaint. What are they actually looking at? Which is the inner wounded child in both occasions. So whenever we have a fight within a couple, we're never fighting with the adult self. We're fighting with the inner wounded child.
So similar roots, different manifestations.
Exactly. And these things are things that we've worked together with Helene.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So who translates for yourself then in your couple?
Helene does most of the translating.
I think we're mirrors to each other. So we reflect a lot of the things back to each other, and we have very open communication.
Yeah.
So I think we've learned throughout the years to not take things personally, and to understand that, okay, it's Stephanos' inner child speaking now. Okay, it's Helene's inner child speaking now. So I'll speak to that version of Helene or that version of Stephanos, in order to not create, an argument that goes on for days. That's, something that we might have done in the past. So there's much more clarity and communication. Yeah.
And was there a turning point into this? Was there a situation where you thought, okay, this is the way that we need to approach these kind of things, or it was more like a smooth, continuous journey in terms of
I wouldn't say it was smooth, no. Actually, so when we first met with Stephanos, our relationship was very fiery. So we would argue all the time. I mean, continuously. So
Because
there
you
was-
both strike me as very strong personalities.
Yes, yeah. And that's exactly how we met.
Fire,
So-
fire to fire.
yeah, it was fire to fire, and it was almost like, who's gonna win? That I'm right or you're right?
Baby, your mic.
And with time, we realized, okay, if this is going to be a long-term thing, we really need to work on that part, on compromising and taking a step back instead of trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
And communicating that. So I think with time we kind of we created this dance between us. That's what we call it now.
Beautiful.
Where one knows when to take a step back and the other one knows when to go forwards, and how to communicate in each other's languages as well. So Stefano likes to be spoken to in a specific way. I'm the same with other things. And we kind of find that balance between us. But it takes a continuous practice and work. And it's not a this month we work it and next month we don't. It's a continuous thing. And I think it's been a continuous thing for 15 years.
So if I would like to add something here, just to put things into perspective, like to give some examples so that we don't speak in general, because I don't think that people watching this are gonna get this. So the way our relationship started, Helene always knew what she needed from a man. Now, what she needed changed throughout time. As she was maturing and growing up from a young woman into a grown woman, adult woman, and a mother, things changed. Now, the way the dynamics shifted between us is that I've grown up with a mother in which I was always there to listen to and put her emotional needs above my needs. So because I am the definition of the parentified son, I brought that also into my relationship. So I was always putting Helene's needs above mine, and I was keeping my silence. Now, growing up, though, also as a man and understanding my self-worth, doing my therapy, my shadow work, family constellations, all forms of therapy, spiritual or traditional therapy, I've realized that in this process, I was sacrificing my needs for my partner's needs, because this is a person that I love and I adore and I look up to as well, to the point that it was making me sad and depressed. And I was putting myself into situations, overstretching myself emotionally with time, that I was neglecting Stefano. And this is an issue with any man that is the good boy, let's say. Now, usually, the men that either know themselves, they know where to put certain boundaries, but there are other men in which they're toxic masculine, in which they're in a relationship with themselves, not in a relationship with a woman.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that brings couples clashing with each other. And another important thing that we've recently worked on, me and Helene, because we both go to therapy and we both go to therapy as a couple, is that we imprint on the expectations on our wife based on how our mother was, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I realize I do that a lot. You know, I would have done this, which then probably makes me think, you know, my mom will have done this, because, you know, I grew up in a Soviet Union house, you know, and both of my parents are very high achiever. My mom particularly, right? She comes from a very humble background, but she won a scholarship because she was a European champion of basketball. At 24, she was a doctor. She had already a kid, you know. So I grew up with that. At 24, I was European champion of basketball and a mother and a doctor. What the fuck were you? I was, I don't know, I'm still playing with PlayStation. I'm trying to figure it out. You know, as it was all that massive contrast, which now I realize, you know, all the weight that put, you know, it took me a really long time, you know, never enough, procrastination, anxiety, you know, always trying to work. And, you know, it was all coming from that. And it's interesting that you said, because there is a lot of our parents into ourselves. And what you said about the good mother, and makes me think about a lot of the people that I know in Cyprus, where it's a very patriarchal society. Strong man, cigaro, hunting, chaos, souvla, den milo, everything is good, men up. And on the other side, super strong woman, very protective, very motherly, my nest is my life, my kids and everything. And what you said then translates into good boys, but then they're not happy. Like I see a lot. The work that you guys do, I think, is more needed now than ever before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But not many people, and especially when it comes to their relationships. And I'm starting to speak first of all about myself. The biggest resistance that I faced going to any form of therapy, it was going to couples therapy. But there, it was beautiful. It was beautiful when we did it, because I was like, what the hell? I'm a relationship counselor, and I'm gonna go.
I do this for a living. You don't tell the baker how to bake the
bread.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how to do it.
I'm fucking good at it, because we've been through a rough patch with Helene. But hearing you speak right now, maybe Helene could take that. So, if let's say we have a very dominant mother, high achiever, and the father is not so.
No, my father is a dreamer.
Is a dreamer.
My mom is a doer, high achiever. My father is more of a dreamer, and I think that's why I do the work that I do, right? Which is brand strategy, which is a mix between business and creativity. It's a middle of the two worlds. My family table was always divided by my mom being the scientist and my father being the architect and the dreamer. One was Armenian, the other was Estonian. So lots of contrast.
Cultural clash as well.
Yeah, cultural clashes. Our is a better culture, yours is a better culture. All of that. So there was a lot.
I see.
So I always struggle in between left side and right side. Until I found brand strategy, which kind of like brings them together. Creativity applied to business results. That was my.
I can see both of that in you.
Yeah. But
the structure and the dream.
I'm 36. I'm talking about my last 6 years. For 30 years I didn't know.
I think a lot of people wait to know the answers of their life at the age of 20.
Yeah,
at
true.
the age of 20,
I was a child.
You don't know anything. At the age of 30, you barely start to understand yourself. And I think at 40, I'm 38 right now. At 40, more or less, you do understand your family line, the way they worked. There is some form of acceptance. And then you're like, okay, where do I go from this point? If this is my goal, where are the pillars that I need to work on to reach that goal? Because professionalism also comes with a lot of psychological leaps that a person needs to make. Take risks. Put yourself out there, finish that bloody book. So there is...
Go on a stage,
Go
Yeah.
on stage.
Push a post.
Yeah.
Charge twice. Ask for a raise.
Yes.
Yeah, those are all things like... But it's very interesting what you're saying. I do see kids now, 20 years old, I'm going to call them kids, just to reveal our age. I find them much better than what I was in some things.
They're much more developed.
They're much more developed. They're much more straight.
And emotionally developed.
Yes.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
And they're
much more emotionally developed, and they're more comfortable with showing their emotions.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, like, if we're talking about our ages, there's this... we have access to the way that the world works today, yet we have the programming and the conditioning of the older generation
Analogical
as well.
and digital.
Okay, so we are like the transitioning phase. We're the transitioning time period and group.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's essential to make that transition. Like, where are we going to lean towards? Are we going to be more like the older generations and make no changes?
Yeah.
Or are we going to lean towards accepting and being more open to being more emotionally available, having open communication between us, how we want to develop our businesses, our strategies, the way we want to raise our kids? It's a completely different world. We are basically creating the new world.
Yeah. But your job's gonna have to evolve as well, right? Because I think your patient will become older, but the younger ones will become patients as well. So it's also constant evolution. So you said something interesting about therapy and couple therapy and going to therapy, like. I think a lot of us, and including myself, I made a mistake of hitting the wall with my face on and understanding there was a wall or shit, I need to do something. I woke up on the back of an ambulance 3 times before understanding that I had to do something with the mental health. I had to take control. Is that so? I guess the question is, when should we start having the journey of seeking health, going to therapy, going to a life coach?
It's funny because it's the second time I've been asked this on a podcast.
Yeah. Do we need to start bleeding to address the wound?
I think it's not a matter of when you need therapy. It's when did you start it? In the sense that everyone needs it way before they actually know that they need it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that should just be a bit like working out.
Yeah.
That's what therapy is. It's a workout for the brain, for your body, for your emotions, for your soul.
So basically, Helene, you're suggesting to anyone to try
Yes,
that.
of course, yeah. I mean, I started my own personal development journey when I was 18. And that was either through therapy or exploring different avenues of myself, whether that was somatic practices, going to Anthony Robbins as a personal development.
At 18 is quite young, though. What made you take that decision?
I was raised in a very open-minded family where we had access to being very positive, having positive mindset, meditation. So so I felt that was part of my upbringing. And then I went through a really rough patch when I went to university. I fell into depression very early on. So as soon as I left this cocoon of beautiful Cyprus and I ended up in London, where it was just a different environment. Women were different, people were different around me. Everyone used to drink and I really wasn't into that. I felt isolated. So through that isolation came a lot of reflection, like, well, who am I? What do I want to do in this world? Am I studying what I want to be studying? How do I explore that? How do I find myself? So when I had all these big questions as an 18-year-old, I really had to find some answers. And the only way that I could find answers was within myself. Yeah.
Beautiful. You guys talked both about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. I don't know anything about it. Can you explain what do you mean? What makes masculinity toxic and what makes femininity toxic?
So I think Helene gave a very good definition.
I did when?
Well, you say a lot of wise things, honey.
I've changed you well.
So the definition that I'm going to try and use her words. The definition that Helene has given for feminine toxicity is a woman that is detached from her emotions.
Oh, yes, from her body.
Functions from her mind. Now,
Meaning
that she's becoming extremely logical. She's becoming extremely, I think, not I feel. So
he's going towards the man's side of the hemisphere.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the value of a woman in a relationship comes from the depth of her emotions and her instinct. Otherwise, you need to be in a relationship with a man. And this is something that a lot of men do not understand. What the hell is the value of a woman within their household? She can see things and foresee things that you cannot see them coming. And she can protect you, and she can tell you a lot of the times which direction you need to go to.
If she's in tune with herself.
If she's in tune.
If she's not, and doesn't have access to her
and
own
if a
emotions.
man can trust her.
Yeah.
Because that's another issue. The Minotaur complex, which we could go into another time, but the Minotaur represents the sexual wounds of any man. And Ariadne, the purest form of the feminine, is a woman that a man can trust and be Theseus in this journey. Now, masculine toxicity comes with the opposite, like a man that is, I would say, too much in touch with the chaotic nature of his emotions and his passions, that is not disciplined enough to go into the I think disciplined sphere. So what we see nowadays, we see a lot of insecure men.
Yeah.
A lot of men that want to have leverage over their partner. Financial,
Yeah.
physical. And when you have financial and physical leverage and you don't use it to uplift your partner and your family, then you start corroding what you've spent your whole life to build.
So how does feminine toxicity comes to life into our relationship or just in life? So what are the signs or the acts, or what do you see the most?
So a woman who's an overachiever,
Yeah.
who is constantly working, never has any time for herself, puts everyone else before herself, is overly associated, like there's such a big movement around female empowerment. But the problem with this that I'm seeing is that the women who are representing it don't even know what it means, because they don't know what authenticity is. So if you don't know who you are, then how can you represent authenticity or even be a representation of female empowerment?
Yeah.
It's like being a wellness coach and not having the foundations. I mean, it's one of those things you can see all over the other person if they are truly in alignment with their authentic nature, whether that be masculine or feminine.
So we are confusing women further.
Correct, yes. Because we don't have the right models, because they haven't done the work, the foundational work to know who they are enough to embody confidence, to embody the true feminine, to embody the actual representation of a nurturer, but also someone who knows himself enough to be able to lead authentically.
Yeah. And this is the authenticity goes back into both of them.
Yes.
in terms of the foundation, being at ease with who you really are.
Yes.
And just letting yourself be guided by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can someone achieve it by itself, you think?
It's very difficult.
What do you mean by itself?
Get into a place where you know yourself and you're able to lead authentically, properly, or do you think that they needs to be guided by someone external?
I definitely think that I personally believe, and in my own personal journey and with my clients, I have always seen that if you get a coach to support you on any journey, whether that's a business strategy or a self-development approach, someone can take you there much faster that's actually already been there.
Yeah.
It's essential. So my leaps within my career development to transition from personal trainer to get to a systemic family constellation therapist and authenticity coach has been because I've invested in coaches.
Yeah.
And someone reflecting back to me what it is that I need to work on, because we can only see so far with ourselves.
Why do we struggle so much with authenticity, though? I think we live in a society where we are bombarded by information you can find about everything. And in a way, you open your Instagram feed or TikTok feed, there is a portrayed version of authenticity, right? People are sharing a lot, right? The lives are really open. So where is the problem sits in that?
So most people have difficulty being in solitude, and in solitude is the only place where you can listen to your own inner dialogue. Now, if you had a rough day at work and you're choosing to numb your mind by either going on Instagram, drinking, altering your reality, watching Netflix for countless hours, overeating, you will never hear to your inner voice or what it tells you. It could be right or it could be wrong. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you take a freaking notebook and write down what are your inner thoughts. I screwed up today with my boss. I shouldn't have said that. Oh, this colleague gave me a compliment. Why didn't I not take it in? Where does that lie? Now, the true essence of a good therapist is to teach you to how to work with yourself. Not have you in freaking therapy for 5 years. That's not a therapist. That's your mom or your dad. And many therapists are capitalizing on that, which is wrong and unethical. So unless people sit in solitude, they will never listen to their inner thoughts. Now, when you listen to that voice, then you take that voice to a therapist to tell you, where did that voice come from? The way you spoke to your son, did your father came out at that point? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things that we need another person's guidance, not because they're better than us, but because they've done some work on their self so that they can be a clean slate for the other person, like a clean mirror to see themselves. But there are a lot of therapists that also are stuck in the people-pleasing zone, where they're going to say to their therapist the things that the client wants to hear. And that's also another...
They're going in pitch deck mode or sales mode, yeah.
So it's not something that serves the client. It doesn't matter if you lose a client. At the end of the day, when you sit on this chair of a therapist, you need to represent truth. And truth is the essence of God. Not that the therapist is God, but you need to speak your truth or their truth. Maybe a truth that they haven't thought of. So this is the true essence of therapy at the end of the day.
And what's have you experienced, or can you talk about what's the direct connection of reaching that inner peace, authenticity, connecting with your inner child, and just going through that journey of internal healing and well-being? What's the connection of that with business success and career?
Mm-hmm. So,
go on.
You got it?
I was going to say it's very, very interrelated, because, whether you're building a business or working for someone and you want to go up the ladder and you want to grow, there needs to be some sort of growth within yourself. And if that doesn't exist, the business won't go forward, and neither can you grow up the ladder or climb the ladder, as we say. So I think they go hand in hand. In my own entrepreneurial journey, where I did have a six-figure business in Saudi Arabia, in wellness and fitness, it was very important for me to do the work in order to be able to grow the business and to keep growing myself, in order to transition and change myself into this process, into this person that I've become today. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. No, I agree. But also, from my personal journey, even being able to, know yourself, know your limits, know what you need. Also, you can put boundaries between work and life, because I also, work with my partner, work with a really good friend, and I'm an entrepreneur, and there are long days, so you also don't want to bring it down. Back home, the highs are very high, the lows are very low. Yeah. So by being at peace, but also able to visualize a vision as well, and being able to see where you're going and why you're doing what you're doing as well, and the impact that brings.
I have a very good a key point to share here. I think it's very important that along the way that we have these big dreams and these goals and visions, we also remember simplicity. I think that's been one of the most important key learnings and teachings that I've shared with people, that we lose the essence of the simple things and to find happiness in them. Yeah. And when we focus on that, then everything else around us also grows.
Yeah. I have an interesting thought, which is connected to what we were saying before, but it's about, how hard it is to be emotionally honest. And you guys travel a bit, I think probably on the northern hemisphere there are kind of slightly different problems and issues. In the Mediterranean and in the south, I think we're really emotional, but doesn't mean that we're honest with that as well. And I specifically in Cyprus, I see women going through menopause, and they're being told to shut the fuck up and go through it, in a way that we believe that women are designed to suffer. The first period, the giving birth, and then going into menopause, right? There are this big chapter of sufferance that a woman needs to go through, and that's it. And the man needs to man up. And actually, one of the first reaction when a man opens up with a friend is that they make a joke, or they laugh about it. So why is this happening? And what can we do in our circle of influence to try to help our friends, try to help our family? Because I guess your job doesn't finish in the studio, or your job doesn't finish in the office with your clients. What are things that each one of us can do to help the people around us?
Okay, so our job with society finishes in the office. We have a very small group of friends because it's difficult for us to not go into the role of a therapist.
Yeah.
And we have very few friendships in which they're entertaining to us. They're not intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to people in society, first of all, they need to understand what does it mean to be a mother. Because now with the epidural, they don't understand that their mother has given birth to them with the potential of dying. 1 in 3 women in the past used to die giving birth. The breast of a woman is sacred, is the first meal that they've ever had. And then the breast of a woman became sexualized and is being marketed to attract attention. Now, many men, they need to understand that they need to man in, not man up. Because man up, you man up for society. But when you man in for yourself. By accepting your father, by accepting your ancestors, your limits. And from that place you grow. There's this essence of wealth around men and money. But at the end of the day, they need to understand that no woman is going to stay with you unless they're really desperate. If you're super rich, because yes, they will cheat on you if you're not emotionally intelligent. The same thing if you're physically powerful. If you cannot communicate to a woman in a way that is of emotional context, then a woman will cheat on you. Because women perceive cheating as emotional bondage with another woman.
Yeah.
So if you, let's say, have a best friend in which you share all your secrets with and you don't share it with your wife, she will have a problem with you. Now, men associate cheating very much with the physical aspect. But for women, has everything to do with the emotional.
Yeah.
And in occasions in my office, when I had situations of cheating, the woman was okay with it if it was just casual sex. But if it was an affair, all hell could break loose. The same thing with a man. Like a woman could understand that, oh yes, I was speaking with this man on a daily basis. He was offering me emotional support. And she was so aware that she said that I was also cheating on my husband while he was cheating on me. So there is also that element when it comes to differences between genders. So the way to help society is help them understand the essential differences of the masculine and the feminine and the way that both men and women think. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that men should buy sex or women should seek male friendships because their husband is unable to do so. They need to work on it together or eventually break up because they're going to give the wrong impression also to their children.
Yeah.
And when that comes forward, we've done nothing.
Yeah.
I think that the best thing that we can do for society and the people around us is actually to be ourselves. That's a very, very important thing, because many times people say, oh, you're selfish, or why don't you want to come out with us, or perhaps why do you want to approach this way? Because that's the way that I want to do it, and that's me honoring me and being me. And the more we know ourselves and we are able to then represent ourselves in our relationships, then you're also giving the other person sitting opposite you the permission to also be themselves.
Yeah. No, I love that, Helene, and I actually I started looking at the word selfish from not being a negative word, from protecting of my interest, but also my inner peace as well. Instead of having to go out because I have to, even if I don't want to, or having to please people I think I don't want to, because then I know that the consequence of doing that are much more damaging than actually putting myself bit. But again, it's a long journey. I realized very recently, and what I was going to say, yes. So the number one topic we were talking about being true to yourself and authenticity, but like we live in a society where we're told how to talk, we're told how to dress, we're told how to look. I see a lot of my female friends beautifully, naturally, that they undergo to procedures to try to be something else, and ultimately you look at a group of young ladies, and I think in Cyprus it's very, very apparent. They look all the fucking same, or they're trying to look all the same, and so in a way we are pushing away from what we actually need.
Yes.
So, and did you? How much of that do you think it's social media influence?
Big chunk of it.
Very big.
What are you guys gonna do with your kids and social media then?
It's a good question. Teach them. Just educate them. I think to educate them and empower them to know who they are and be themselves, and no matter what they see online, to know that it's a projected image, because a personal brand at the end of the day, we share things online, but we don't really share the full story.
Yeah.
We share the most authentic version that we can, talking about Stephanos and myself. However, still, there's so much of your life that you're not sharing, so therefore it still is a facade.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. And last but not least, to close our conversation today, Helene, what will be your 2 tips or advices or word of love and recommendation to a young couple?
Open communication. Speak openly about your emotions.
Even if it's hard.
Even if it's hard. Even if it's hard. I think that's a very, very important key point.
Stephanos?
Go to therapy before you have children. This is essential, and maybe go to therapy before you form your first, before you get married or before you have your last ideal relationship.
Why? Because it's easier.
Because there are a lot of things that I think people do not understand what is right for them and what is wrong for them.
Yeah.
And we see, and the collateral of wrong choices are many children that stay either fatherless or motherless.
Yeah.
So it's a shame when you have a formless mass of love to betray their trust, because there are deeper wounds there.
100%. And yet a lot of people try to solve couple problems by getting married, and then they try to solve wedding problems by having kids.
Yeah.
And more kids.
Yeah.
Even if their marriage doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's again petrol over fire. Guys, thank you very much. What are you guys currently working on together?
We have a couple of things. That I'm working on a book, which I'm trying to get over my self-limiting belief that who is going to read that book.
I will. So you got 1 reader.
Thank you.
And me.
2. Here we go.
And the second thing is that in the coming months or in the coming year, we're going to put some psychology basics or courses for people on dating, stress, anxiety,
Nice.
relationships, so that people that cannot afford to come to therapy, they could buy those courses and they could teach themselves.
Brilliant. Helene, what are you up to?
Well, I'm currently working on my Authentic Empowerment Blueprint course, which has been going on, but also like updating and changing it. And we have our retreats, Empowered New Year retreats, which we host every 3 or 4 months, which is on mindfulness and self-love and a lot of the practices that we teach within our offices. We also bring into spaces like 3 or 4 days where we get to collectively work on these topics and issues whilst also making them fun.
So people spend 3 days together, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, beautiful. When is the next one?
On the 29th of April.
29th of April. Where can we find out more of this?
On our Instagram pages.
Social media.
Perfect.
Yes.
Stephanos and Helene, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for
you,
opening
Martin.
up and sharing some of your much needed knowledge and topics with us.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us,
Thank you,
Martin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.